Let's begin with a moment of silence. Sometimes in the hustle and bustle of life, just a little bit of silence is enough to create a significant change in the soul. When we stop, temporarily leaving behind all worries and stress, we will see that it is in this silence that a vast space gradually opens up. This is a moment when we don't need to rush to find answers or try to think, but just need to be present and let everything unfold naturally. This moment brings us closer to a pure state, which we call not knowing. Not knowing here does not mean a lack of knowledge or preparation. On the contrary, it is the moment when we give up the desire to understand everything immediately, relinquish control, and open our hearts to whatever may happen. In this state, thoughts and emotions are no longer constrained, but become a natural, gentle, and profound flow. And this is also the foundation for the journey we will explore together. A journey back to the power of inner stillness. Inner tranquility is something that everyone can feel. A place where the noise of thoughts and the turmoil of emotions no longer exist. When we delve deeply into this state, we realize that silence is not just the absence of sound, but also a liberation from stress, anxiety, and unnecessary expectations. From there, we touch a profound peace, a feeling that nothing can shake. But to achieve this tranquility, the first thing we need to learn is to accept not knowing and trust. In silence, we begin the journey by allowing ourselves not to know and not to prepare every answer. This requires trust, as it is not always easy for us to free ourselves from the need to control or to understand everything immediately. This trust is the belief in oneself, in life, that even though we do not know exactly what awaits us ahead, we can still accept and embrace everything naturally. When we accept not knowing, we begin to explore a new space, a space where thoughts and emotions can come and go without leaving heavy traces. Instead of stressing out trying to understand everything, we become open to things we don't know or understand yet. From there, new ideas and profound emotions naturally emerge, taking us further on the journey of self-discovery. The journey to discover the power of inner stillness does not require us to change ourselves abruptly or to seek stillness far away. That stillness has always been present within us, but sometimes we get swept away by the currents of life and forget how to return. Today's speech will guide you through simple yet profound steps so that you can access and enjoy that inner stillness, a space you can return to whenever you need peace. Consider this speech as a small handbook where you can find practical guidelines to connect with yourself. These are practices that do not require special preparation, do not take a long time, and can be started right from everyday moments. This journey will help you experience tranquility, not just the absence of noise, but also a profound sense of peace, allowing you to discover a part of yourself that you may have never encountered before. Inner stillness is not a state of silence, but a state of awareness. When entering stillness, we are no longer bound by thoughts, no longer confined by the limits set by the ego. It is in silence that we can see ourselves more clearly, perceiving thoughts and emotions that no longer control us. This is a place where all efforts to achieve something seem to vanish, leaving only pure presence and peace. Then, let me be ready for this journey with an open mind and a belief in tranquility. Anyone among us can experience and feel this inner stillness. All you need is trust and a willingness to explore. In life, we are often compelled to know the answers to everything, to understand and control every aspect of life. However, there is a state that brings deeper value, which is not knowing. Not knowing is not a state of ignorance or lack of knowledge. It is a liberation from the need to have an immediate answer and a liberation from incessant thinking. This is a state where the mind is relaxed, not needing to impose meaning or answers on everything around. When we enter the state of not knowing, a new world will open up. In this state, we are no longer bound by the limits of thought, no need to rush to find answers or conceptualize everything. Instead, we accept that there are things we do not know and do not need to know right now. It is precisely in the space of not knowing that we can explore deeper ideas and emotions from within. The state of not knowing is a way for us to connect authentically with ourselves, free from being controlled by thoughts or constant worries. When there is no longer haste, no longer the pressure to understand and control everything, we begin to approach the deeper layers of the mind, where the feeling of peace and freedom gradually takes shape. Imagine that each thought or answer is a cloud drifting across the sky in your mind. When we accept not knowing, we let those clouds drift away without needing to touch or hold on to them. Thanks to that, the sky in the mind becomes clear, opening up a new space from which anything can emerge. Why is not knowing so important? That's because this state helps us break free from the constraints of the ego. The ego often makes us feel that we need to have answers, that we need to understand everything to control our lives. But when we truly become comfortable with not knowing, we begin to shed our dependence on the ego and start living naturally, no longer pressured or stressed by what we do not know. In this state, we no longer compare ourselves to others. We don't need to prove anything. And from there, inner peace will gradually emerge. To begin approaching the state of not knowing, we can practice through moments of stillness in life. Try to think about the times you felt surprised, unprepared, like when standing in front of a crowd or encountering a new situation. In those moments, instead of trying to figure out what to do immediately, try to let yourself accept the situation naturally, allowing the feeling of not knowing to exist within. You will see that sometimes deeper solutions and answers will naturally emerge from this state of calm and acceptance. Practicing not knowing is a way for us to relax, let go of expectations, and relinquish control. When we accept that there are things we don't need to understand right now, we begin to feel a sense of relief. No longer constrained by molds or the limits of thought, we become open to possibilities we had never considered before. This is a place where our imagination and deep emotions have the opportunity to be expressed. When no longer imprisoned by thoughts, our minds become a clear sky where everything we need will naturally appear without effort. In daily life, not knowing can be a state when we pause between thoughts, creating a silence amidst the continuous flow of thoughts. When we dare to embrace that moment without feeling anxious or the need to fill it, we are opening up a space of stillness from which creativity and inspiration can emerge. This is why silent moments are so powerful. They allow us to return to ourselves, to explore our true thoughts and feelings without being influenced by external thoughts or emotions. It's not always easy for us to keep ourselves in a state of not knowing. Sometimes the ego will make us feel uncomfortable, wanting to quickly find an answer or take immediate action. But when we learn to accept this uncertainty, we will see that it is a part of the process of growing up. Not knowing is not a deficiency, but a sign of an open mind, willing to embrace new things without being limited by what is already known. In that state, we can listen and understand more deeply, as the mind is no longer haunted by the need to find an answer. When we dare to live with not knowing, we will realize that life is no longer a series of events we need to control. Instead, life becomes a journey where each step can bring surprises. On this journey, every moment becomes more complete and meaningful, as we are no longer influenced by expectations or pressure. This is how not knowing becomes a companion, helping us transcend the limits of the ego and discover a new perspective on life. In the journey to seek tranquility, one of the greatest obstacles we need to overcome is the ego. The ego is not a complex concept, but it has a powerful influence on how we perceive and act. Ego is when we define ourselves through roles, achievements, and external standards, when we perceive our value through comparison with others. It makes us live in judgment, constantly self-evaluating based on social standards, such as beauty, status, or intelligence. And it is those very standards that create barriers separating us from inner tranquility. The ego always craves external validation, always needs to feel superior, or at least equal to those around it. This is the reason why many people live in a state of stress, as the ego never feels satisfied. It makes us feel inadequate, or sometimes delusionally superior. When controlled by the ego, we can no longer listen to what truly comes from our hearts and are always swept away by external conditions. A sophisticated aspect of the ego is the spiritual self. The spiritual ego appears when we start on the path of self-discovery and feel we are progressing superior to others in the spiritual journey. We can easily become complacent when we see ourselves possessing vast spiritual knowledge, or when we feel that we are developing faster than those around us. This leads to a subtle trap, where the ego continues to exist beneath a spiritual facade. This is how the ego cleverly hides, turning silence into a tool to reinforce the self rather than truly liberating us from it. True silence does not exist when there is comparison, judgment, or egoistic self-satisfaction. Silence comes from pure awareness, without conceptualization, without judgment. When there is no longer any comparison with others, when there is no longer any self-affirmation through roles or achievements, we can truly approach genuine peace. This is a state where we don't need to search for or prove anything. We just need to be present and feel. To find inner peace, first we need to learn how to listen to the ego without being controlled by it. Imagine each thought from the ego as a guest coming and going. Instead of reacting, instead of judging or pushing them away, we just need to observe. Observing without reacting is the first step to breaking free from the control of the ego. When a thought like, "I need to achieve this," or "I am better than others in this aspect" arises, try to pause for a moment and ask yourself, is this really necessary? Is this my true nature? By observing the ego without reacting, we gradually sense freedom. When we are no longer controlled by thoughts of comparison and judgment, we will realize that peace and happiness do not depend on external factors, but come from within. This is true tranquility, where all comparisons and expectations dissolve. Listening to the ego and transforming it is a journey that requires patience and compassion. Don't pressure yourself to completely detach from the ego overnight. The ego is a part of us and has a certain role. The important thing is not to let the ego take control, but to let it be present as a natural part, while we maintain inner peace and awareness. Overcoming the ego does not mean completely eliminating the self, but rather recognizing that we are not identified with that self. We can live and act without being bound by the judgments of others or societal standards. This is freedom, a way to access the deepest part of ourselves without needing to prove or compare. True tranquility can only come when the ego no longer reigns, when we no longer feel the pressure to achieve something for the sake of the self. Practice every day to recognize and listen to the ego. Whenever we feel the urge to compare ourselves to others or get caught up in external standards, let's stop and return to ourselves. Pay attention to your emotions and thoughts without judging them. Gradually, when we observe without getting caught up in the ego, tranquility will naturally emerge, leading us to a state of peace and freedom. By living with this awareness, we not only find tranquility, but also build a balanced life where the ego no longer controls us. In this state, we can perceive everything clearly, no longer obscured by external constraints. This is the true power of silence, a peace that requires no conditions to exist. Silence is not something distant or elusive. That is a state that we can feel in every present moment, right in our daily lives. Silence does not require a special space or a long time that we have to spend. On the contrary, it exists in every moment we are experiencing, while taking a sip of water, while walking, or even when listening to the sound of the wind blowing through. In fact, it is the full presence in the present moment that opens the door to tranquility. Try to pay attention to the small, simple moments that we often overlook. When eating, instead of letting your thoughts drift to work or worries about the next day, focus on the flavor of each bite. Savor the chewing and the natural sweetness. When taking a walk, instead of hurrying, pay attention to each step. Listen to the soft sounds of leaves or the flowing water. These small moments help us return to the present, bringing us into a state of natural tranquility where everything unfolds gently and peacefully. The presence technique is a simple yet powerful method that helps us maintain tranquility. Starting with focusing on your breath, feeling each inhale and exhale is one of the easiest ways to cultivate the ability to be present. Breath is the rhythm of life, the thread that connects the body and mind. When we focus on our breath, our thoughts gradually settle and we become deeply present. I'm no longer drawn into endless streams of thought, but feel a sense of peace in that very moment. Body awareness is another technique for practicing presence. Take a few minutes each day to sit still and focus on the sensations of each part of your body. Feel the soles of your feet touching the ground. Feel the airflow moving through your chest as you breathe. Our body is a part of the present, and when we pay attention to the physical sensations of the body, we will find it easier to distance ourselves from the noisy streams of thoughts and emotions, and to feel the stillness within ourselves. Listening quietly is also a way for us to become present. When we listen without thinking, without responding immediately, the mind becomes peaceful and we can deeply perceive the sound. Try listening to the birds singing in the early morning, the sound of rain falling, or simply the wind blowing. Instead of trying to analyze or understand, just listen and let the sound become a part of the present. In that silence, we can see that we are merging into the natural rhythm of life, no longer feeling isolated or separated. Once we begin to feel the stillness, we will notice a great liberation. When we are no longer controlled by thoughts, we truly become ourselves, no longer bound by opinions, judgments, or worries about the future. This state gives us a sense of freedom without any conditions. It is in that silence that everything becomes clearer and simpler. I feel fulfilled, and life becomes effortless without having to strive for anything. This does not mean that we need to give up all thoughts. Thinking is a part of being human and has its own value. However, when we can break free from the control of our thoughts, when we can let thoughts pass by without getting caught up in them, we can truly feel freedom and peace. We don't need to completely eliminate thoughts, but rather learn how to live with them while still maintaining tranquility. We choose to think when necessary and choose to let go when not needed, creating a balance between the mind and the feeling of presence. Practicing stillness in the present moment not only helps us feel at peace, but also brings about mindfulness. I began to view life with a more forgiving and gentle perspective. When we are truly present, we no longer feel the need to rush or worry about what has passed or what has yet to come. The present moment becomes everything, and within it, we feel joy from the simple things. Every passing moment becomes meaningful and profound because we know that we are living in this moment in the most complete way. Presence not only brings benefits to ourselves, but also improves the relationships around us. When we are present with our loved ones, we are no longer distracted by personal thoughts or negative emotions. We truly listen to and empathize with others, creating a sense of closeness and deep connection. The stillness within us creates space for others to also be themselves, free from judgment or comparison. The journey to find tranquility through the present moment is a journey that anyone can undertake. Just a few minutes each day to sit still, focus on your breath, feel your body, or listen to the environment around you, and you can connect with tranquility. The important thing is not how much time we spend, but the focus and presence in each moment. Each practice brings us closer to inner peace and freedom. Modern life can make us feel distant from tranquility, but this does not mean we cannot return to it. Silence does not require us to abandon our daily lives or distance ourselves from our responsibilities. On the contrary, it is an addition, a foundation that helps us become more stable and peaceful. When there is inner peace, we are no longer disturbed by external challenges. We can face everything with a peaceful mind, savoring each moment without worry. In life, self-confidence is often seen as a decisive factor that helps us succeed and be happy. However, not everyone understands the true nature of confidence. The confidence we often think of usually depends on the ego. It is confidence based on comparison and a sense of superiority. We often feel confident when we see ourselves better than others in some aspect, when we receive recognition from others, or when we have external achievements to be proud of. However, this kind of confidence is not sustainable. It fluctuates strongly when we encounter failure or when there are no external conditions to support us. On the contrary, confidence that comes from inner tranquility is a deeper and more steadfast kind of confidence. This is a type of confidence that does not depend on recognition from others, does not require comparison or any standards to affirm one's self-worth. When we find inner peace, we realize that our value does not depend on external things. We don't need to prove anything. We don't need to achieve anything to feel fulfilled. This is true confidence, stemming from a deep understanding of oneself and a comprehensive acceptance of who one is. To recognize this confidence, we need to clearly distinguish between ego-based confidence and confidence from stillness. Confidence from the ego is when we feel superior to others, when we need praise to feel proud. It is a fragile confidence that can vanish when we encounter failure. Confidence from stillness is completely different. That's when we don't need to rely on standards or comparisons to feel satisfied. That's when we can stand firm, feel comfortable and at peace without needing anyone's recognition. Silence helps us see that all true values lie within, and from there we can feel strong and at peace in any circumstance. To develop confidence from stillness, we need to practice accepting not knowing and letting go of the habit of judging ourselves based on external standards. Instead of trying to prove our worth through achievements or comparisons, let's learn to be present in each moment, feeling a sense of completeness from within without being influenced by external opinions or judgments. When we feel valuable without relying on external standards, true confidence will come naturally. One way to practice confidence from stillness is to focus on the stillness in each action. When doing something, instead of thinking about the outcome, focus on the process. This helps us eliminate the pressure of achieving results and instead appreciate the value of each moment. Even a small task like washing dishes, cooking, or even walking, we can do with presence, focusing on the action instead of worrying about how others perceive us. This is a way to build unconditional self-confidence, a confidence that comes from knowing your own worth without needing anyone to affirm it. The confidence from stillness also helps us find a sense of peace and satisfaction with ourselves. When no longer pressured by the ego, we can live more freely, experiencing everything more fully. We no longer need to seek recognition or approval from others, nor do we need to achieve anything to see our own worth. Instead, we find fulfillment in every moment, in every action of ours. That is the strongest feeling of confidence, when we know our own worth without depending on any external conditions. When we feel confident from tranquility, we can also easily face the challenges in life. Instead of feeling insecure and anxious, we can embrace every situation naturally, without fear. We know that we don't need to prove anything to anyone. We don't need to compare ourselves to others. Everything is part of the journey, and we can face them with calmness and confidence in our own worth. This is a type of confidence that nothing can break, because it does not depend on external factors but lies deep within our souls. In life, we are often driven to achieve more, to become more accomplished, to find ways to earn the respect of others. But when we find stillness, we realize that we have been complete all along. We don't need to chase any standards to feel happy. We can live and work freely, unbound by comparison or expectations. Confidence from stillness is a solid foundation that helps us live true to ourselves, without being swept away by the currents of society. When we are truly confident from stillness, everything becomes clearer and easier. We no longer need to confront or compete to feel valuable. Instead, we can immerse ourselves in life, feeling each moment sincerely and deeply. This confidence is not arrogance or complacency, but a complete acceptance and love for oneself. That's when we no longer have to please anyone, no need to prove anything, simply being present with trust and peace. Silence is not a state that only exists during moments of meditation or special occasions. It is a part of daily life, present in every small action, in the moments of silence amidst the daily hustle and bustle. The power of silence lies in the fact that it helps us face every situation, every challenge without the need for tension or stress. That is a state that we can maintain and carry with us, helping us create a peaceful and harmonious life. When we apply silence to our daily lives, we realize that we are no longer caught up in unnecessary conflicts and tensions. I no longer react hastily or let emotions take control. Instead, silence provides us with a space between external stimuli and our own reactions, a space where we can choose to act with calmness and understanding. Thanks to that, we no longer let negative emotions take control, but can make wise decisions, helping to solve problems more smoothly and effectively. A typical example of the power of silence is when we encounter stressful situations at work. Instead of reacting immediately, silence allows us to pause, observe our emotions, identify the emerging tension, and from there, we can choose an appropriate response. By keeping the mind calm and serene, we not only handle situations better, but also conserve our energy from being wasted on negative reactions. Silence helps us maintain energy to continue our work, feel balanced, and reduce pressure. Listening to life through silence is a way to help us recognize the beauty of life that we sometimes unintentionally overlook. Try to spend a few minutes each day just sitting still, listening to the sounds around you, feeling the air, and letting your mind be free of judgment. This is not just a technique for relaxation, but also a way for us to reconnect with ourselves and the world around us. Through the stillness, we feel the heartbeat of life, perceiving the presence of everything in its entirety, no longer distracted by tangled thoughts or incessant worries. Silence is not just a temporary state, but can become a way of life. We can start with small habits, like spending a few minutes meditating each morning or during moments of waiting. Instead of looking at our phones, let's enjoy that moment. Gradually, as silence becomes a part of life, we will notice that we are no longer easily disturbed by external situations. We can feel a sense of peace even when everything around us is happening in a rush and bustling. This helps us live more freely and comfortably, no longer dependent on circumstances. Applying silence in real-life situations not only helps us maintain a state of peace, but also creates a harmonious space for those around us. When we maintain our composure, we not only help ourselves, but also make others feel at ease and more willing to share. Conflict situations can be resolved more gently, as we are no longer drawn into negative emotions. Inner silence helps us perceive everything more objectively and compassionately, thereby creating an environment where everyone feels comfortable. Practicing silence also helps us tap into our creative abilities and self-discovery. When the mind is no longer distracted by chaotic thoughts, new ideas have the opportunity to emerge. We can view the problem from a new perspective, finding solutions we had never thought of before. Silence opens up a space for creativity, helping us access the deeper parts of our soul that we may have never realized. This is how silence becomes a source of motivation, helping us to continuously explore and develop ourselves. When silence becomes a part of life, we can easily feel joy from the little things. We no longer need to seek happiness from great achievements or fleeting joys. Silence brings natural joy, a time when we can enjoy each moment without having to do anything special. Simply by admiring a flower, enjoying a cup of tea, or feeling the warm sunlight, we can feel happiness from within. These things create a balanced, fulfilling, and meaningful life. Let silence become a part of your life, not as a rare state, but as a daily habit. To practice, you don't need to do anything too complicated. Just spend a few minutes each day sitting still, listening to your breath, and observing your thoughts without judgment. Gradually, you will realize that you can bring tranquility into any situation, at any time. Silence will become your companion, helping you live a lighter and more meaningful life. Silence is not just a temporary state, but an eternal source of strength within each person. It does not come from the outside, nor does it require any conditions to exist. Silence is the strength that helps us see ourselves and the world around us clearly, without being bound by opinions, judgments, or worries. This journey of discovering tranquility is a process that not only helps us connect deeply with ourselves, but also find peace, confidence, and true joy. Through each step of the journey, we have explored how to live with not knowing, how to transcend the ego, to feel inner peace, and how to recognize the power of presence in each moment. This silence is not the absence of action, but the calmness and clarity in every action, every decision. It is unbound freedom, living without needing to control everything, and being ready to embrace whatever comes with an open mind. Everyone can find this tranquility, for it is the true essence within each of us. When we allow ourselves to live in the present moment, accepting all thoughts and feelings without letting them control us, we will find a natural peace rising within. That is true strength, a strength that needs no proof, no comparison, and no search anywhere else. That tranquility helps us face life without being shaken, no longer feeling the need to achieve something to find happiness. This journey is a journey without an end point, and that is precisely what makes it meaningful. Silence is a companion that helps us overcome the ups and downs of life, enabling us to continuously learn and grow. We may face many challenges, but with inner peace, we can confront everything without losing our tranquility Continue to carry this tranquility into your life. Try applying small but meaningful techniques in your daily life. Sometimes, just a few minutes each day to return to oneself, to feel inner peace, will make life much lighter and more meaningful. Silence is not something we need to seek outside. It has always been present within each of us. Just open your heart and embrace it.